Hello everyone, welcome to the MindMajix. In this session, we'll see the interview questions and its answers, and it is based on the Ruby on Rails. So we have seen till now the Ruby introduction part of Ruby and the Rails frameworks. So depending on these topics only, these questions and answers are there. The first question is, what is Ruby on Rails? So we know that the Ruby on Rails is a server-side web application development frameworks, and Ruby on Rails framework, it is written in the Ruby language only. It allows you to write the less code as compared to the other languages and frameworks, and it includes the everything that is needed to create the database backend web applications using MVC pattern. So Ruby on Rails is a web application development framework. Second question, explain DRA in Rails. So DRA stands for do not repeat yourself. So there are the three principles for the Rails: do not repeat yourself, convention or configuration, and naming conventions. So among these three principles, it is one of the principle DRA. So it is a principle of software development which states that every piece of knowledge must have an authoritative, unambiguous, and single representation within a system. If the same part of the code will not repeat again and again, the code will be more maintainable and extensible, and it is less buggy. It will help to find out the bugs very easily. So write less code and do not repeat yourself. Explain COC. COC for the convention or configuration. It is again a principle of Rails framework. It provides the different opinions on best way to do many things in a web applications. So in Rails, convention over configuration, this concept is used because in Rails application, when we create any application, in that various files are created after creating the application, and that files takes the names. So for which files we should have to give what names. It should be plural, it should be singular. All these conventions are followed by the Rails framework. It is nothing but the convention or configuration. Who developed the Rails? So the Ruby on Rails, it was developed by the David Heinemeier Hansen. Next question. What are the three methods to install the Ruby on Rails? So first, we can download the setup from the web browser, from the URL of Ruby on Rails. Then that is the from source. Then using RVM also, we can download the Ruby on Rails, and using Ruby environment command, that is Ruby env. So using Ruby environment RVM, we can download Ruby on Rails, and directly we can download the setup from the authorized website. Name some Rails IDE or editors. So which editors are used for the developing the Rails applications? So there are various applications: NetBeans, Eclipse, Asana, RubyMine. What is Rails script? Name some of them. So Rails provides some excellent tools that are used to develop the Rails applications. These tools are packaged as a script from command line. Following are the most useful Rails script in Rails application. Rails console. Rails console is used for creating the active records and performing the various operations on database. Then webrick web servers, generators, and migrations. So these are the Rails scripts. Are there any disadvantages of Ruby on Rails? If yes, then mention them. Yes, there are some disadvantages. Linking to multiple databases, then inclusion of foreign key in database, establishing connection to various databases at a time, and web services related to the store. What is the use of super function in Ruby on Rails? The super function in Ruby it is used to invoke the original method. It calls the superclass implementation of the current method. So we know that the super keyword is used in an inheritance. The super keyword is always used to call the function from the parent class or the constructor from the parent class. The same, the super method is also available in Ruby language, which is used to call the method from the super class. What is active record in Rails? So the Rails is using the ORM feature. A perfect ORM hides the details of database relational data behind the object hierarchy. In Rails, ORM implemented by an active record, which is one of the most critical components of Rails library. While using active records, you have no longer deal with the database construct like the tables, rows, and columns. Your applications only deals with the classes, attributes, and objects. So using application, we can deal how to create the classes, which attributes we have to use, and how to create the objects. But all these things, classes, attributes, and objects, these are converted using the ORM in a tables, columns, and rows. So this conversion is taken place using the active records. To design active record in Rails. Active record is based on a design pattern created by Martin Fowler. From this design pattern only, active record got its name. Its code works very well even with the less number of lines. It is quite easy to use. Active record Rails application does not need any configuration at all if proper naming schemes are followed in your database and classes. Explain models in Rails. What is models? So the models are nothing but the classes in the Rails. We have to create the classes. This subsystem is implemented in Active Record library. This library provides the interface between the database tables and the Ruby program that we manipulate the database records. Which command is used to create the migrations? So the generate migration command is used, generate migration and name of the table. Then it will create the migration for that particular table. What are the hashes? The hash is the data type available in Ruby. The hash is collection of keys and values pairs. Means hash data type stores the values in hash data structure in the form of keys and values. Next question, how the blocks are created in Ruby? So the syntax for the block, name of the block, open curly brace, write something into the block and close curly brace. So this is the way to create the block. What is the naming convention for the variables? So the name for creating the variables, there are some rules. The name of the variable is given in the lowercase and an underscore separates the different words within the name. What is next question? What is the main difference between procs and blocks? So the procs are the objects, whereas blocks are nothing but the part of the code. The script can be represented in a single as well as double quotes. What is the difference between the two? Single quote, string created in single quote and string created in double quotes. So what is the difference between the two? A single quote string representation is not allowed to perform the string interpolation and process the ASCII script codes. Explain the Rails migration. So with the help of migrations, Ruby can make the changes to the database schema. So whenever we want to change any changes in database schema is nothing but the definition of the database. So whenever we want to change the schema, that time we can use the Rails. So for this purpose, the migrations are used for changing the schema of the database. How would you create a controller for the subject? So there is a command generate controller. Name of the controller is subject. Using this command, you can create the controller. Explain the views in Rails. To display the output to the user, how to create the interface for the user, the views are used. So views represent the data in a particular format in an application for the user. This subsystem is implemented in Action View library. This library is embedded in ERB, that is the embedded Ruby-based system, which define the presentation templates for the data representation. Explain the controllers in Rails. Controllers direct the traffic to views and models. The controllers controls the communication between views and models. This subsystem is implemented in Action Controller library. And this library is data broker sitting between AccuRecord and Action Queue. Explain RVM in Rails. It is a Ruby version manager. It is a command line tool which allows you to install, manage, and work with the different Ruby environment efficiently. With RVM, you can easily install a different version of Ruby and quickly switch between them. The basic syntax of RVM is RVM command underscore options command Ruby to act on. What are the gemsets in Rails? The gems in Rails, gems are nothing but like packages or the libraries in the Rails. So there are various types of gems available in Rails. Gems in Ruby are used to extend the capabilities of core Ruby distributions. They add the specific functionalities in your program. Some gems are also installed with the Ruby installations to provide the specific environments to call the gemsets. You can have the different version of same gems installed in the system. So whenever you want to add some extra functionalities in the program, you can install the gems. So it's a command to check how many gems are installed for our application. So RVM gemset list. It will use all the gems available for the application. Write the command to update the RVM in Rails. So the command is RVM EP head. This command is used to update the RVM. Why we use migration in Rails? So migration alters the database schema for an application in a consistent and organized manner by using the DSL. So syntax is Rails generate migration table name. Write the command to run the migration. After creating the migration, we have to execute that migration. So for running that migration, the command is write db:migrate. So after executing this command, all the migrations that are pending are executed and the database gets changed. How does router works in Rails? The Rails router recognizes the URL and dispatches them to a controller section. So whenever we run our application on a server, so that time when we open any web page as a home page, or when we want to open any web page through our application, so first of all, in a Rails framework, it will check the root for that web page. In that web page, the controller and action pair is returned. So the root sends that request to the appropriate controller. Which controller should be selected? And from that controller, which action should be selected? It is the main purpose of router. So it is written, the Rails router recognizes the URL and dispatches them to a particular controller's action. It also generates the path and URLs. Rails router deals with the URLs differently from other language routers. It determines the controllers, parameters, and actions for the request. The main purpose of routers is connecting the URL to the code and generating a path and URL from the code. Explain REST in Rails root. So REST, it is a very beneficial to understand the routes in Rails. It stands representational state transfer. Several HTTP methods are using the REST feature. REST is a web service. This feature is used to represent the types of actions performed by the user or the application. Next question. Explain some feature of nested scaffolding. So normal scaffolding Scaffolding is used when we use the scaffolding. It create an application for us, a Rails application for us, and all the things are done by default when any scaffolding is executed. So the nested scaffold is the command that generates the set of correctly working nested resources for the Rails 4.2 and 5. So the features of nested scaffolding is it generates the nested child source with a single command. It generates beautifully working bunch of code, automatically generate appropriate model associations for the active record, and HTML ready. So when we run the software command, it generates the models, views, and controllers for the application by default. And it gives the built-in code also. It is a runnable application. We have to just run it and we have to check the output. So these tables are also created in the database. In how many ways you can create the Rails layout HTTP response? So there are the three ways to create the HTTP response from the controller's point of view. Call render to create a full response to send back to the browser. Call redirect to send an HTTP redirect status code to the browser. And call head to create a response to end back to the browser. Next question, explain the importance of yield statement in Rails. So yield, it is a keyword that is used in a Ruby programming. Yield statement in Rails decides where to render the content for the action in the layout. If there is no yield statement in the layout file itself will be rendered, but additional content into the action templates will not be correctly placed within the layout. Next question, how many filters are there in Rails? So in Rails filters are the methods that run before and after the controller actions method is executed. So Rails supports the three types of filter: before filter, after filter, and around filter. How can you protect the filter methods in Rails? All the Ruby methods have at least one of these protective levels: public, protected, and private. So public, these methods are accessible from any external class and methods that uses the same class in which they are defined. Protected, these methods are accessible only within the class in which they are defined and in a class that inherits from the class in which they are defined. Private, these methods are only accessible within the class because these are the private, so outside the class it cannot be accessed. Explain the testing in Rails. Why the testing is used in a Rails. So Rails also use a separate database for the testing. Rails use the Ruby test colon A unit testing library. Rails application test is usually run using the rake utility. So if you want to test the software, we have to use the rake utility, rake command. Rails support the three types of test: functional, integration, and unit testing. Then Rails caching levels. Rails caching is available at the three levels of granularity: page, action, and fragment. What are the Rails validations used for? Rails validation defines the valid state for each of your active record model class. They are used to ensure that only valid details are entered in your database. So validations are before entering the data or before saving the data into the database, the validations are checked. Explain valid and invalid in Rails. So valid question mark, invalid question mark, these are the two keywords. Valid question mark triggers your validations and returns the true if no errors are found, otherwise false. If validations are written and if that validation is correct, then it returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. Invalid, it is also the reverse of valid keyword. It regards your validations and returns true if invalid. If the validations are invalid, then it returns the true, otherwise false. Explain unobtrusive JavaScript in Rails. So this technique is considered as the best technique within the front-end community. What is a symbol garbage collector? Passing symbols opens the possibility of several attacks in your systems. The symbol garbage collector collects the symbols which prevent your system from the several attacks. Next question, what is action cable? It is a framework which is used to extend the Rails via web sockets to add some functionalities. It integrates the WebSockets with the test of the Rails application very smoothly. It allows you to add some real-time features to your app quickly. What is the Rails console? Rails C. The Rails console. The Rails console is a command line utility which runs the Rails application from the command line. The Rails console is an extension of Ruby IRB. It provides the features of IRB along with the ability to auto-load Rails application environment, including all its classes and components. What are the generators in Ruby on Rails? The Rails include the code generator script, which are used to generate the model and controller classes for applications automatically. So we are using the command like Rails generate model, Rails generate controller. So it is a generate. So generate, it is a script. It is used to create the model and the control classes for the applications. Code generation increases your productivity when developing the web application. By running the generator command, skeleton files for all your model and the controller classes will be generated. It also generates the database migration file for each model it generates. So automatically, the generator command will generate all these files for your applications with the migration. What is webrick server? So when we run the server using the Rails S command, so after that the server is started. On that server, our application will be run. So in some applications, the webrick server is used. In some Rails application, webrick server is inbuilt is there and it is used. The Rails is configured to use the webrick server automatically. It is because it is inbuilt with the Rails software. This server is written in pure Ruby and supports almost all the platforms like the Windows, Mac, and Unix OS. Alternatively, if you have the Mongrel and the Light TPD server installed in your system, Rails uses either of those servers. All the three Rails servers feature automatic reloading the code. It means when you change your source code, you do not need to restart the server. Okay, these interview questions are covered here. Okay, thank you so much.